All right. Hello, hello.
Hello, how are you?
It's so nice to actually have this working now. Technology,
Yes, yes,
technology
it's
is
not Facebook Live,
yeah,
but we have a recording, so that's all that matters.
100%. We can actually chat to each other, which is brilliant. Live
Yeah.
in process right now. Awesome. Well, it's so nice to have a chat with you, Brooke. Do you want to just say a little bit about your background?
Yep. Okay, so I'm Brooke. I've been in the fitness industry for, I feel like I've been saying 18 years for a few years now, so I'm probably closer to 20 now. Mainly, I was in the corporate space. I did train a couple of pregnant and postnatal mums in that time, and I really loved having to adapt the exercise to the different stages that they were at. And then it was when I was pregnant with my first that I started to look for a pregnancy class, and there was just nothing on offer in Hamilton. So that's when a little seed was planted. But it took till I was pregnant with my third to actually get in there and do something about it
I
post
wonder
COVID.
why. There's so many children, busy.
Not the ideal time to launch a business, but it was very much needed.
Yeah.
And yeah, so now I've been taking the pre and postnatal fitness classes for 3.5 years and one-on-ones. And yeah, love
That's
it.
awesome.
Absolutely love
That,
it.
that's fantastic. Yeah, I think I got into or doing this kind of thing for over a decade. It's growing, I think, towards the 15-year mark now, I think.
Yeah.
But it is first it was just getting in because I love training people and loved making exercise fun. Then started to realize, oh, you can't just push people really hard. A lot of people have injuries nowadays and whatnot. So I became a rehab trainer, working particularly with people that had more challenging health or injury situations or returning from surgery. And then started working with mums and bubs afterwards. And then after having my three, it was like similar. I was like, and having a C-section, I was like, okay, we need to actually do something to champion women, to actually empower them, right? Because
Yeah.
it's a it's a tough job being a mum and being able to find a place that you can, I don't know, make them feel valued and be able to help support where they're at, rather than saying, here's a cookie cutter, start, off you go, good luck.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And it's not that go hard or go home sort of
Yeah,
mentality. It's you
yeah.
come in whatever state you are in that day,
Hmm.
and we're working to your level and hoping that you're going to leave the session feeling better.
Yes.
But that might be because you've only done your pelvic floor exercises. It might be
Come on.
nothing over and above that.
It's so true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I'm really looking forward to our conversation today because as mums of three, plus C-section mamas, aren't we? It's like,
Well,
we've
I'm
done.
not actually a C-section mum,
Oh, but
so
you had
I was
surgery, didn't you?
I was almost
Oh, yeah.
with my third, actually. It was the surgeon. I remember she was waiting at the door, kind of like, come on, get this woman on my table. But I was quite
Wow.
persistent that if I could have a third vaginal delivery, that
Mm.
I wanted to go down that track. So the
Oh,
midwife understood and made it happen in a safe way, thankfully.
midwives can be amazing, right? It's like when you
Yeah.
got a good one, you're like, it's magic. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, today's conversation is going to be brilliant. We're going to get into C-section and exercise and all that kind of jazz. So, kickstart us off will be how a C-section is impacts the abdominals and our bodies. So, quick little beastie here. So you got your skin layer. People go, how many layers do you go through? It goes through 6 to 7, and most people go, surely it should be 6 or 7. But you'll work out that way in a second. So go horizontal line about 10 centimeters. They go horizontal line first. Once they go through there, they're going to find the good old subcutaneous fat level. Lovely. That will also be cut through. When they've gone through that, oh, it's so stuck together today. They're looking at the fascia. Now, your fascia is all over your body, but particularly it's a quite a thin tissue. And what they're going to do, again, is just make a very, very careful incision through that. And then they find your linea alba. Now, your linea alba is the connective tissue that runs down the center of your abdominals. Your rectus abdominis connect on either side. They don't touch each other. They actually connect to your linea alba, right? And so they don't go cutting your abdominals. They go through your linea alba. So when they've gone through that, they go, they don't actually, sorry, they don't cut, they tear. So their fingers go on each side. This is delightful, right? And
Yeah.
they literally, that's the sound that my husband said it made. It was like a surge on each side of yank, and they come apart. After that, they go through your peritoneum. Hooray! They push your bladder down out of the way so it doesn't get damaged. But again, if you think any organ getting moved out of the way from where it usually is gets affected, and then through to your uterus. And this is where the magic is. So the seventh layer is if your waters haven't broken yet. My waters had already broken, so therefore this wasn't actually there. Uterus straight to baby. So, but yes, ta-da, and then they get the baby out.
That's such a cool little booklet.
It's a lot. It's a lot of layers.
Yeah.
And so it is major abdominal surgery. So I think when people think, oh, I'm only in hospital, for a day or two, they're thinking it shouldn't be. Surely it's not that big a deal. Women do this all the time, and so off they go. They get a little booklet, and then they hope. It's almost like hoping for the best. That, well, this is what our body should do, so we should get on with it. But the reality is, it takes time to heal. So in a nutshell, the skin layer will take 10 to 12 days. But because the outside layer is healed, a lot of women go, therefore it's healed. And therefore I can get back into life, because that's without complications, by the way. But the reality is the rest of those 6 layers, like the other 5 layers that still need to heal, they're going to take 6 to 8 weeks more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so one thing with the linea alba, the one that they go through, lovely pull part, they don't actually suture that back together again. So that really fascinates people. They're like, why not? And it's like, well, they've found that it actually heals better, less scar buckling, and it's less painful for the woman. So they tend to leave it to heal. So if you think this thing here is not actually sutured back together again, the more pressure that goes on any of the incisions, the harder the body has to work to heal itself. So in the crucial first 2 weeks are like critical healing phases, but those first 6 to 8 weeks is when all of these layers need to be cared for in such a way that it can actually heal as well as it can, less complications, less chance of scar reopening, infection, that kind of thing. So it's really important that we look after that phase. So if we're looking at getting back into exercise, Brooke, what is your approach to women? Like, when do they come to you after they've had a C-section?
So I recommend my C-section mums wait for 8 to 12 weeks. 12 is the best. 8 is okay as long as they've had a thorough check from a pelvic health physio and that the physio has cleared them. But then we still look at what we're doing in the workout that day and make adaptations, knowing that they are still really early in their recovery.
Yeah.
Still at 12 weeks. Everything's still healing, building up slowly.
Yeah, awesome. No, that's brilliant. And I think it's so important that a lot of times women think that they just want to bounce back. They want to get back into a normal life. They want to, like, I want my body back and I want to be able to do what I want to do again. I don't want these restrictions. And I think that was probably the hardest thing for me when I had my C-section. I was literally lifting like barbells and dumbbells the day before I gave birth. And then all of a sudden, I'm not allowed to lift heavier than my baby after having a C-section. You're like, and not meant to be lifting weights, before that 12-week mark. You're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
So I think having a class like you, being able to come see someone like yourself in person, and then being able to be encouraged to honor their bodies in the process, right?
Yeah, and I try and avoid using the word back in class, because rather than always thinking back to where we were, it's about thinking forward to what your new mum, like
I love that.
your new mum body and the strength that you've now got because you've grown a human and delivered it. So it's always about looking forward to what your body can now do.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I'm gonna start using that with my clients too. It's so true, right? Because your body will never be the same. I think when I first had a baby, well, actually before I had a baby, I was just like, all these people saying, like, oh, my body's never the same after having a baby. I'm like, you're obviously not working hard enough. How terrible.
You don't know what you don't know though, right?
So true. And then once having a baby and going, oh my gosh, like my body is forever changed, and not in a bad way, it's just different. It's most amazing, powerful healing machine. And what it was able to do, like you said, grow a human, deliver this baby into the world, heal, restore, and get back to, other things that we might have previously done, and then trying new things that we've never done before. So it is. Our bodies are a wondrous thing.
Incredible. Yeah.
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 Um, for me, in my part, when I had my C-section, I went through the journey. I followed everything to the letter. So, like the doctor said, nothing heavier than a baby. No lifting weights, no high intensity till 12 weeks. There was just a couple of things, and so I followed it to the letter. And
Yeah.
yet, when I got to, I think it was like the 12-week mark. So, like when you're meant to be able to get back to doing whatever you wanted to, like
Yeah.
lifting weights and high intensity. I hurt my back by lifting my niece, who was little, like a young, like little baba. I lifted her literally from here to here, so it was like a couple of inches, and my back just went, and
Yeah.
I was in so much pain. And so after that, I was just feeling really lost with the process because I was like, I've followed everything the doctors said, yet my body, after all of this time, is still not strong enough to handle a very minimal movement.
Yeah.
This isn't right. So I started seeing a specialist, she was phenomenal, and she taught me how
Yeah.
to engage my core in a way I'd never done before. Because growing up, you're kind of active anyway. And so,
Yeah.
doing different exercises, you just get in and you give it a go, and there's little progressions. But I'd never known how to go back to actual day dot, not being able to engage my abdominals, not being able to engage these things. And so she took me through real, what I'd call boring stuff. But
Yeah.
I started to realize this boring stuff, this rehab,
Yeah.
is essential for every mama. And so I was
That's
talking
the
with my
important stuff.
midwife, and she
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, you need to start doing this for other ladies." And
Yeah.
it's like you Google, how to speed up your C-section recovery, and you get millions of Google responses saying this is what you should be doing. Who do you listen to? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it creates a whole other anxiety when you're trying to be, recover from this. You've got
Yeah.
newborn baby you're looking after and trying to adapt to, plus heal yourself from major abdominal surgery. It's like it feels unfair. So that's
Mm.
where the Birthmark Sisterhood kind of came in. So rehab from our perspective, in the sense of where women can start their rehab, is at day one.
Yeah.
So the moment the doctor says you can get out of bed, that means you can actually start to honor your body and start the rehab. So how you get out of bed, how you stand. So it's real mindfulness of how you're moving. Because tendency is when you've had a C-section and they've obviously cut all these layers, the tendency is to do that because you don't
Yeah.
want to stand tall because it feels like a bit of a pull and you want to
Yeah.
protect it. So
Yeah.
naturally people would hunch over and kind of hump, wobble around. But the way we move with walking, the way we sit, the way we get in and out of a chair, the way we get in and out of bed has huge impacts on the abdominals. Because if you think about all the different layers, and particularly the linea alba, that's 6 to 8 weeks before this one's
Mm.
healed. If we're doing like a sit up in bed to get ourselves out of bed, we're putting all this pressure on this area that actually has no quality to be able to do it
Yeah.
or ability to hold it.
Yeah.
Um, but it's so yeah. So I worked with quite a few different like physios and pelvic floor specialists and whatnot to go, what is, how can we approach this in such a way that we can honor the woman in the
Mm.
early stages? And it is rehab. So yes, it's boring, it's simple, but it's what your body needs for where you're at in the recovery. So
Yeah.
now it's just trying to get the word out so women know that they don't
Mm.
have to do it by themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. What have you found? Like, what kind of exercises, like, if you think, say, pelvic floor or your transverse abdominis, so those deep core muscles, where do you usually start with women? Like, what kind of approach do you have for women with that?
So I guess ideally I like to see women during their pregnancy, and we start with the pelvic floor and transverse abdominal activation. So every session
Yeah.
starts with that.
Hmm.
So during pregnancy, we wouldn't be doing it lying on our backs. We'd take a side lying and then all fours.
Beautiful.
And so that's working the pelvic floor with a gentle lift and then gently tightening the transverse abdominals to keep your core nice and stable. And then it's carrying that through into the session. So you learn how to squat, activating pelvic floor and transverse abdominals, doing wall push-ups. Every exercise, I'll cue pelvic floor and transverse abdominals. So before you're giving birth, you're already knowing, like you already have learned how to switch on those important muscles that are carrying so much extra weight.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Um, yeah. So then post-birth, whether it's vaginally or via C-section, because having a C-section does not protect you from pelvic floor problems at
That's
all, because
right.
you have still carried the weight of a baby.
Yes, during
And a
pregnancy.
lot of people don't realize that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just because you haven't birthed vaginally, it doesn't mean that you still shouldn't go and have a check from a
Mm,
pelvic health physio to make sure that everything is still sitting in a good position.
yeah. And especially
Um,
especially for those that have pushed during labor before they've had their C-section. For
yes.
many mums, that's the case, isn't it? It's like
Yes.
yeah, it will be more
Yeah.
affected even more than, yeah.
Yeah, because you've almost given birth both ways in a way.
Yeah,
If you've
absolutely.
done, say, 2 hours of pushing and then
Mhm.
haven't been successful and end
Yeah.
up with an emergency C-section, yeah, you've essentially, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And so do you
Um,
have cues that tend to, I don't know, like connect for women that you use for, say, like pelvic floor? Like if they're thinking like, oh, okay, how do I connect to my pelvic floor? If they're watching now, what would you say?
Yeah, so the main one that I use would be so on the inhale is when you're expanding through the abdomen and everything's nice and relaxed, and it's on the exhale that you're just doing a gentle draw in. So imagine if you'd inserted a tampon part way, you're trying to draw it in like another 5%. So it's not a really strong lift, you're
Right.
not clenching your butt, your legs are still relaxed. It's
Cool.
just that really gentle drawing in.
Mm.
Um, Otherwise, I don't use this one so much, but imagine sucking a blueberry up a straw.
That's the one I use. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I tended to move away from that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then if people really can't sort of do it, I would say like stopping the flow of urine or trying to stop passing wind.
Mm.
Yeah, but I tend to do the tampon one the
Yeah,
most.
that's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're at home and you're going like, oh, I don't know how to do this, it's like if you do try when you are going toilet to stop going toilet, that's not somewhere to practice, but that's somewhere to go, oh, that's what it
Yeah.
should feel like. And then you
Yeah.
try when you're not, because otherwise it can either create other problems. So
Yeah.
yeah. Awesome.
And
Awesome.
then for the transverse abdominals, so I get my clients to put two fingers just in from their hip bone, so they're down on the muscles. And then after drawing in the pelvic floor, tightening from hip bone to hip bone. So imagine that you've got string tied on your hip bones and you're trying to draw that string together. Or if you've got yourself into a pair of jeans that are a little bit tight and you're trying to do them up across your hips, you're trying to get your hip bones a little bit closer together. That's
Yeah.
that kind of feeling for the transverse abdominals.
Perfect. So that's brilliant. I love that thing of like your tights against your thing or your jeans, and you're like trying to draw it in to get the button that last little bit.
Yeah.
Ah.
But the main thing to note is that it's not belly button to spine. So sort of moving away from that, it's much lower. So imagine like where a bikini or like bikini underwear would sit. That's the skin that you want to be trying to draw back to your belly button.
Which is
Sorry,
almost,
draw back to your tailbone.
oh,
Not,
okay.
yeah.
So it's almost
So
like
not belly button to spine.
for women then having a C-section, they could be thinking C-section scar towards, would you say, the
Yes.
tailbone?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Wow,
So that is one that I have used in the past. If I've had a room full of C-section, it's like imagine drawing your C-section scar back to your tailbone.
beautiful. It's amazing how language changes over the years, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, and you go, oh, okay, so there's a new cue or it's a way of doing this, or actually we understand this better, so this is a better,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
cue. For me, for working with C-section mums, the first place we start is actually breathing, which sounds really basic, but it's so important because you've had a trauma that's happened to your body down low into your abdomen. Therefore, people tend to
Mm.
start breathing through their chest instead.
Yeah.
Shoulders start going and the tension starts all up here. And that actually affects the way the scar heals. So if we can start to learn to breathe into the belly, like lower into the belly, and not real big and expansive breaths, but as you said, everything is gentle. So that gentle
Yeah.
breath into the belly, allowing the belly to expand a little bit, and then breathing out and drawing it
Yeah.
in. At first, you're not even like drawing it in, you're just allowing the belly to fall. And that's
Yeah.
the very first stage, in a sense, of C-section scar massage, is that in and out, just the skin allowing and going, oh, this is how I need to move.
Yeah.
And as it heals more, you can do more. Um, but I usually start that with my clients anyway. The first time with a one-on-one client, it would be like in the gyms over the years, it would be the cough connection. And so, same
Yeah.
thing, hands on that area, they do a little cough. And when they do a little
Yeah.
cough, there's that press, that tension that kind of comes against their fingers, and they're like, oh, and they're like, okay, now do a cough again
Yeah.
and see if you can keep the connection even after you finish coughing. So that's, again, that's further on after. all the layers have healed. But for the
Yeah.
general public, that would be one way that we connect as well.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Have you had any woman, when it comes to exercising, that they've had any weird sensations, so like numbness or pulling or anything like that when you've been working with them?
Yeah, so with the C-section clients, I always check in, especially as we're moving into slightly more challenging exercises, that they take note of how their scar's feeling. Is there any
Mm.
pulling or tightness or numbness? And if there is, I tend to get them to back off the exercise that we're doing at the time and then give them another option. And then getting them to either check back in with their pelvic health physio, or continue with their scar massage. What would you recommend with that? Do you kind of push through and carry on, or
No, it's a really
take
good
it back an
question.
option?
Yeah, it depends again where you are in your healing process. So if you're beyond that 6 to 8 week mark and like all those layers have healed and you're starting to do a little bit more, and again, you're still doing foundational exercises. So there's no jumping, there's no explosive work, there's no like heavy lifting. But if you find that there's a pulling, particularly for lunges, that's when women tend to find there could be like a
Yeah.
pinging sensation or pulling. That's the scar tissue that is starting to learn how to move. And sometimes what can happen, I did an interview with a scar therapist, and that was just fascinating. And what Diane said was, she said sometimes when you're doing a movement, you might feel a ping, and that could be like how the scar has adhered, attached onto something that it's not meant to. And so those movements actually help to release it. Um,
Yeah.
if you're feeling like a stinging pain feeling, like when you're in that movement, or even like after 20 minutes, if your pain level has gone up by 2 points, if you're thinking a scale of 1 to 10. So if you're
Hmm.
like, oh, I'm at a 3 now and I'm feeling really good, and you do some exercise and it goes up to a 5 during exercise, but then it drops after 20 minutes, you're okay. But if it continues and sustains afterwards, that's when you're like needing to go, okay, I've pushed a bit too much. If you're in the earlier stages, so like before those 8 week marks, signs that you've done too much anyway is you'll bleed more,
Yeah.
you'll feel the pain levels go up, etc. But after that point, it's listening to your body, which
Yeah.
sounds really, I don't know, it sounds very basic, but
Yeah.
we so often we're doing so much stuff we don't listen to our body. So we're listening to music, or we've got distractions going on, or we're watching a program while we're doing exercise. Which, you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
we're so often nowadays we're not in tune to our bodies. And if you're anything like I was before having babies, it was suck it up, push through, go hard.
Yeah.
That will get me results. No pain, no gain. When the reality is the body needs us to honor it.
Yeah.
So so in the sense of the scar, definitely, like you said before, scar massage, massive. So again, don't do anything before that 6 to 8 week mark. You want to make sure all those layers have healed. What you can do before that time, however, is make skin contact with it. So you might go skin to skin. That might feel way too much. I know women that have never touched their C-section scar, and they're like 20, 30 years down the track.
Yeah.
So a quick insight to that is that when we don't massage the scar, oh, sorry, back up. So remember the first, I'm going to go in right order. So 10 to 12 days for this one, all these layers 6 to 8 weeks, right? But then at the 3 week mark until the 2 year, well, 12 months mark, you've got what's called scar remodeling. And
Hmm.
so what happens is when you first get a scar, your body is laying down collagen as quickly as possible, and it's all haphazard and it's all over the place. But what happens is when you have that remodeling starts and you scar massage, it starts to teach the collagen fibers to actually run smoothly. So then they
Yeah.
work as they should, in nice linear motion, which means the muscles can move well, the tendons, the ligaments, everything's moving really well. The scar tissue, it'll never be as flexible as your, initial skin and whatnot, but inside as you move, you can, using scar massage, it actually helps it to move better, which can reduce pain, reduce restriction for exercise, even for women having painful sex. That's a biggie. And women think, I don't know why sex is so painful now. And it's actually because the scar tissue inside has actually adhered to things it shouldn't have. So
Yeah.
scar massage can help. So
Mm.
step one would be breathing. That would be,
Yeah.
breathing into the belly. After
Yeah.
the 6 to 8 week mark, getting touch involved. So different textures. It might be, so if that's your scar there, you might be like finger, like playing a piano. That plays a
Oh,
piano,
yeah.
playing a piano across it. Sometimes it can be like an inch above, an inch below if you don't feel comfortable going straight on top of it. And just slowly work your way around it because there's all these nerves that have been cut through that
Yeah.
need to be reconnected and grow. And they only grow 1 millimeter per day. Yeah, right. So there's mums that are like, I'm numb, and I've got pins and needles and I've got all these things. And so scar massage can help to waken up those things and tell the body, I need to be connecting here. Like I can't feel anything here. But the more I touch, even with like a clean makeup brush on
Mm.
that. It might be a warm wet bag, not hot. Please not hot, because if you don't feel it and you're numb, it will burn. So just a warm wet bag or a cold, like an ice pack, or like you can put wet bags in the freezer. Did you know
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I haven't done it though.
I
Yeah.
only discovered this like in the last month. I feel so empowered. I'm like, oh my gosh. But yeah, so you're exposing it to different textures, different sensations, because if you think about it, if you do that to your skin and then you do that on your scarf, they feel different. You're like, okay, I'm obviously not feeling. Even from one side of the scar to the other, one end
Mm.
might be really sensitive, overly sensitive, and the other one might be like, they're fine.
Yeah.
So, but scar massage, yeah. So there's I do have a interview with a scar management specialist, and she also did a demonstration on a few techniques you can use, which is brilliant. So we can connect those in there. But it's I never knew anything about scar massage when I had my C-section 2015.
Yeah.
There was no talk of it. My son, my second son, he had a massive um, head injury and he had to get surgery on it. And then we got a scar massage specialist attached to us, and we were like, what? So he's getting, all these things we have to do like twice a day,
Yeah.
all, special techniques, all this kind of thing, developments, would have appointments, etc. And so one of the last appointments I said to her after 6 months, it's like, so for C-section scar mums, would this be helpful for them? She's like, oh my gosh, yes. And
Yeah.
so we talked about it, and I was like, why don't people know this? Like, why isn't there
Yeah.
information put into women's hands? And it's like there's a booklet that has all this information in it, but just like, when you leave hospital or have birth, there's so many pieces of paper you get,
Yeah.
and then it's like sometimes a booklet, you're like, what does that actually mean? So,
Yeah.
and so I said to her, please, please, can we do something to help women? Because I don't know how to do that. I need a specialist to teach, not me saying this is what you
Yeah.
should be doing. Yeah. So I learned from her and was just like, oh, thank you. Let's get this out to
Yeah.
women because it can
Yeah.
make a difference. Yeah. And
Yeah.
even if
I
they're like,
tell all my
yes,
C-section mums to make sure that they go and get taught how to do the massage, because
yeah,
otherwise, yeah, they haven't been told anything
yeah,
and they don't know how important it is.
yeah.
And I have heard horror stories of the scar adhesing to basically everything on the inside. And
Yeah.
then I know somebody who ended up with a hysterectomy because of it.
Serious.
So yeah,
Wow.
we don't want mums going down that track.
Yeah, yeah. For women that, like even though I'm saying it's in that first year is the most prime, 6 months is the prime time.
Yeah,
Even if your years, decades down the track, like 30, 40, 50 years down the track, and you're hearing about it now, and you're like, I didn't know.
yeah,
You can still, by massaging the scar, it can actually help reconnect your brain to your transverse abdominis and to those deep core muscles. So if you've had a real struggle going like, I can't connect to my abdominals, like they just don't seem to want to engage, massaging your scar. I did that with a few of my clients that had had C-sections like 30 years earlier. And I just
yeah,
said, hey, when you're in the shower, get some soap and then just, massage
yeah,
over it because then you're like, you connect a habit with another habit. It's
yeah,
easier than trying to remember. And then started doing some really basic things. And she was amazed. She said, oh my gosh, like I can feel my abdominals. Like she could feel
yeah.
her
That's
six pack, but not the
amazing.
deep core muscles. So it's
Yeah,
never too late to make a difference.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the same with like your pelvic floor work as well. Even if you've had babies 30 years ago,
Mm,
it's never too late to be working on your pelvic floor and deep
so true.
abdominals and yeah,
Mm,
and strength training. We know how important strength training is for older women as well.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
So let's start now and show our babies, like have your babies lying on the floor and
yeah.
you're doing your strength training and show them that you are taking care of yourself. You know how important it is. Don't forget about you.
Yeah, which is so easy to do as a mum, right? We get busy. We need to
Yep.
make sure they, Bubs has got this, and
Yeah.
we're like, when I get a moment, oh,
Yeah.
have you experienced? I think every mum does. You're like, I'm going to exercise this morning. You put Bubs down for a nap, and then you go to start, and then
Yeah. Yeah. That's usually the way it goes.
it's even happened now. My youngest is 4, and he was climbing all over me when I was like trying to get my exercise. I'm like, buddy, I love you.
Yeah. This is me time.
Yeah, yeah. The reality is, but
Yeah.
it's worth the effort, right? To push
Yeah.
through and go, even if I can just do a little bit here or there over
Yep.
time, right? And just
Yep.
build it up
So
and
just
making a habit.
getting started
Mm,
on something
yeah.
is always better than nothing. But that's why babies are welcome at all our classes.
Yes. I
And
love
you can
that.
bring them in whatever form they are in that day. They might be happy, unhappy, fed, not fed.
Brilliant.
Yeah, you can bring them along, do what you need to do. So the babies come first. They have to.
Yeah,
Exercise is second, but yeah, fit it in where you can and
that's
do what
beautiful.
makes you like do the movement that makes you feel good. And that's what it's all about is
Yeah.
making you leave feeling better than when you arrived.
So good. So good. I think it's one of those things where I go, oh, we're running out of time. Okay.
I actually had a feeling that we might get kicked out because we'd just get going
We're
and
chatting. It's so good. But I think it is. What's one tip if you think like a mum wanting to get back into exercise? What's one thing to help empower her to do that?
just start small.
Yeah.
Just, yeah, start really small. Don't set any real goals or time expectations. Just, I would always recommend hop down on the floor, warm up your pelvic floor, transverse abdominals, and then see what you can add on that.
Perfect.
There's
Yes.
a lot that you can do on the floor next to your baby while they're doing floor time.
Yeah. And the other
Yeah.
one for me would be like if you're nursing, like if you're early on and you're nursing with your
Yeah.
breastfeeding or whatever, you can do pelvic floor. There's an app called Squeezy, that pelvic floor specialist recommended. And so I used to
Okay.
just put that on and it would just like go like contract or relax or whatever.
Yeah, and you do it with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like
Yeah.
belly breathing while
So good.
doing, while nursing, because then it's
Breathing.
like,
Yeah.
but it's starting somewhere. I usually
Yeah.
put my workout gear out the night before because then when I
Yep.
wake up in the morning, I put it straight on and then it's giving me the best chance of
Yeah.
achieving
Yeah.
something.
If you're dressed in the gear,
Yeah.
then yeah, you'll get it done.
If women want to come along to your classes or do one-on-one sessions with you, how can they find you?
So my website is brsw.nz, or you can email me Brooke at brsw.nz. So we're just coming to the end of term 1. We've got 2 weeks of school holidays. It's not really a holiday, is it, when you have kids at home?
So true.
And then term 2 starts on Tuesday, the uh, 30th of April is when the classes kick off again.
Okay, perfect. And that's in Hamilton at River Ridge in New Zealand.
Yeah, I run a couple from my home studio in Chedworth as
Oh,
well.
awesome.
Yeah.
So get in touch and they can see. Awesome.
Yes. Thank you so
Wonderful.
much. This was such a good chat.
My absolute pleasure. Yes. So if you want to get in contact or follow anything C-section related, Birthmark Sisterhood is .com, and otherwise Naomi at birthmarksisterhood.com. You can reach out there. Most of the stuff's online, but if you want to do something in person, if you live locally, then we can do that too. But yay. Thank you, Brooke. This is a
No, thank
brilliant
you.
conversation.
Yeah, so good. That could have gone on so much longer.
I know, right? There's so many more topics. Another time.
Yeah. Yes, yes, another time, definitely.
Brilliant. Have a good one.
Cool. You
Bye.
too. Bye.